good evening. This is CJ, and this is another video for the knowledge catalog. It has been actually a while since I have uploaded something new, and this video is going to be about social studies. Our topic is going to be about the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, which is going to be focused on the teaching profession. So, ayun, let's begin. So, yeah. If you want to have a copy of this presentation anyway, you may contact me through my page, facebook.com/knowledge catalog/. The teacher as a professional according to UNESCO. One of the key elements of in most of the reforms in education, it is the professional development of teachers. Ngayon lang nare-realize na yan ang isa sa mga pinaka-importanteng bagay na dapat matackle when it comes to improving or reforming education. Societies are really acknowledging that teachers are not only one of the variables that need to be changed in order to improve their education systems, pero sila rin are the most important change agents in these reforms. They are not just subjects, they're also objects for change. Improving the professional development of teachers is actually seen now as a way to improve education as well. So, dati gusto lang ng mga education systems is to just improve yung education system and just improve professional development for teachers, when in fact, by doing the latter, they're actually achieving the former. Ayan. So, while the need for professional development may be seen as a result of teachers' incompetence, Guskey and Huberman's 1995 work revealed that the majority of the educators they have encountered in their study are dedicated professionals actually, who work hard under demanding conditions. So, just because teachers have this need for professional development, it doesn't mean that they are actually incompetent. It means actually a lot of teachers are seen to be working under really hard and demanding situations, and that should be off the table. Professional development among teachers must be seen as a must for improving education as a whole. Good teaching must involve the development of practical skills, knowledge, and values, as well as attitudes. Calderhead and Shorrock believes that teachers must know what, know how, know why, and must know when. And so it is also taken that the professional development of teachers is a lifelong process. So alam na natin yung linyahan na yun. Okay, so it includes formal experiences at saka mga informal experiences. Ang mga to, pwedeng driven sila by some professional education providers such as universities and colleges. Pwede ring self-driven, such as activities. That includes activities like reading professional publications, watching academically related documentaries and motion pictures na wala naman talagang curriculum na sinusunod. It's just self-driven and based from the interest of the teacher. I, for one, what I do is that I am studying a lot of psychological related material, because it is one of my major interests, psychology. And my focus is psychology of learning, students' learning, and child development. So I hope that that can actually count as professional development activity na informal. The aforementioned is a definition for professional development. It is a broader concept than merely career development. That means that growth that occurs as a teacher moves through professional cycle. It is even broader than merely staff development, which involves provision of organized in-service programs designed to foster the growth of groups of teachers. So, career development is different from professional development. In the same way, staff development is different from professional development. Ang focus ng career development is just to promote growth among the teachers as they go through the professional cycle. Professional development is something more than that. Okay, it may involve career development, pero it is not just career development. Also, professional development is broader than merely developing a staff, which is tawag doon, just actually educating or imparting unto workers something like a knowledge, a technical know-how in order to improve their work. And ang end nun talaga is not just, it's not actually the teacher. Ang end nun is much like for the company. Professional development is new to teaching since what is being done is only staff development through in-service trainings, insets, yung mga ginagawa. It is not actually enough. They are not enough for professional development. Professional development is the new image of teacher learning. It is also the newest model para sa teacher education. It is a model na dapat i-follow ng mga pre-service teacher education institutions. It is also a revolution in education as a whole, and it is also a new paradigm of professional development. And so, a new image, a new model, a revolution, and a new paradigm for teacher professional development. Ang mga characteristics niya, it is constructivism. Hindi siya yung transmission-oriented model lang. Teachers, just like their learners, must actively be engaged in concrete tasks of teaching, assessment, observation, and reflection. Ang siguro problema natin ngayon dito is that in my experience din, like siguro personal experience and yung experience din with by asking my fellow teachers na nagbibigin pa lang din sa with their professional development journeys, is that ang nangyayari is parang transferring of knowledge lang din, which shouldn't be the case. Same with the classroom, siguro pag nasanay ang teacher na na taga-transfer na lang ng knowledge, parang nahihirapan siya na naisipin or take into account that kailangan pala tinitreat niya yung learners at saka yung mismong teacher na nag-continue yung professional development as constructors of their own knowledge. Ayan. So that's the first that is the first characteristic of professional development. It is constructivist. Next characteristic is it is a long-term process. Actually, it is a lifelong process. It is also contextualized. It must include actual daily teacher and learner tasks and experiences. It is also one of the problems that we have in continuing professional education. Sometimes, siguro yung mga professors din natin sa graduate studies or graduate school, baka nakakalimutan nila na tayo ay mga teachers ng mga high school students. Tsaka, in a way, na yung mga binibigay nilang mga activities sa atin, pwedeng masyadong pure science, o kaya, alam nyo yun, you get what I mean. As teachers kasi in high school, as a teacher in high school, what I've been actually looking forward to is the additional training of how are these concepts, say for instance in geology, say for instance in biotechnology, are going to be transferred really effectively to my students. And that is not usually the case. Ayan. So, dapat yung mismong pinag-uusapan natin sa graduate school when it comes to formal professional development activities is yun, yung mismong teaching and learning process. Also, it is linked to school reform. It is also already said na ang pinaka matindi na factor na kailangan i-consider when it comes to reforms in education and in schools, it must be professional development. Kailangan ang school mismo is meron siyang ginagawang ways para masuportahan yung professional development ng kanyang mga teachers. As they say, the excellence of the school cannot surpass the excellence of the teachers, right? Teachers must be reflective practitioners. Yung prior knowledge ng mga teachers must be bridged with new concepts learned regarding pedagogies. What's good with my division is that it was capable of delivering unto us a very value-laden training. I still remember my experience with the pedagogical retooling in mathematics, languages, and sciences. My EPS, Miss Jemima Estravillo, shout out to the division of Angeles City. She has invited yours truly to be one of the people to undergo a training for primals in Region 3, and I learned so many things there, so many different pedagogies, so many different technologies. Actually, because of that seminar, I still remember one of the most important things, TPAC model. So technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge. Three interconnected things regarding regarding the teaching and learning process, especially in science. Ayan. So, next one is that it must be collaborative. Ang mga teachers dapat they must work with their fellows, they must be working as well with the administrators, even parents and other community members, and of course, the students. That's actually over and then culturally contextualized, self-explanatory na to. Bale, dapat yung context ng professional development is linked to the cultural background of the teacher para mas maintindihan niya yung kultura kung saan din namumuhay yung kanyang estudyante. Ayun, so professional development models are comprised of specific activities which provide professional development for teachers, whereas systems naman are putting together those kinds of models. So as you can see, models, it's one of the processes that are included in the system, which has goals, contexts, participant characteristics, cost, benefits, structure of administration, assessment techniques, and infrastructure support. A traditional system of professional development is in-service training, kung saan yung control is in the employer. In government ang nag-establish ng goals. Napakakonti ng contribution ng mismong teacher when it comes to the topics that are going to be discussed in the actual in-service training. Kumbaga, parang you can actually say na parang hindi naman gaanong na-involve ang teachers sa planning. Usually, yung principal na lang o kaya yung mismo mga bosses or higher-ups yung nagde-decide kung anong gusto nilang i-train sa mga teachers, which shouldn't actually be the case. Yung mga actors are universities, employers, or consultants, and they always are short-term courses and are impractical. Whereas, the standard-based system naman is yung goals, they come from professional bodies. They may be practical, but they are still insufficient. And so there are three different types of professional development systems. The first one is knowledge for practice. Knowledge for practice. Formal knowledge mula sa universities in improving teaching. Nung ako, nakaano pa rin ako sa umbrella ng the Institute of Teacher Education from the Pampanga State Agricultural University. Everything I learned from my professors back then, it's just all about knowledge for practice. Okay, it's just that by the end of my year, which is the time when nag-undergo ako ng practice teaching, doon lang talaga ako nagkaroon ng mga talagang real life experiences. Knowledge for practice is not bad. Okay, at least meron tayong knowledge based na parang baon. Syempre, maganda experience, maganda rin naman may knowledge. It's not entirely bad. Kumbaga, at least alam natin yung concepts. Governing teaching. Ayan. So, knowledge of practice. Practical knowledge learned through teaching. Ito yung nagbibigay ng logic para sa practice teaching. At saka yung mga natututunan natin about us being teachers and about our learners. As we go through the process. And so experiential learning, knowledge in practice, reflective knowledge in improving teaching. And I guess this is where we are all, or most of us, are having difficulties. kasi sabi nila, parang feeling ko, okay, pag sinabi nila ng reflection, parang sinasabi na, extra work lang yan, hindi naman kailangan. Halimbawa, sa ating mga lesson plans or mga daily lesson logs, siguro madalang yung merong mga siniseryoso yung reflection part, diba? Yung di naman siguro ninyo halos binibilang yung number of students who got passing score, who underwent remediation. Siguro konti lang. Sige, sabihin na natin, hindi naman tayo lahat. And it's supposed to be all of us. Okay, ganun na lang. We need to do reflections. We need to do reflections for us to be able to evaluate whether or not our teaching is effective. Yeah. So, the variables for success of professional development, it is both an individual and an organizational process. Bale, ang teacher, gugustuhin niyang maging professionally developed, mas maganda, mas matindi yung success kung pati yung school mismo gusto niya maging successful si teacher. It always starts small, but it always thinks big. Tapos, ayun, again, it employs collaboration. Tapos, it has procedures para makakuha si teacher ng feedback. Perhaps yung feedback, pwede nating i-take lightly yun kasi parang napaka self-explanatory na nun. You can get feedback by just doing the stuff by yourself. Then, you can also get feedback from your fellows and they will be gladly giving that to you. And even from your bosses. Now, it has continuous follow-up, meron din siyang support, and dapat meron din some kind of pressure. Tapos, dapat integrated din yung mga programs. Now, different views on the teacher as a professional according to UNESCO. The teacher is culturally and socially embedded. Isa sa mga roles ng teachers and the characteristics of teaching is linked to the society in question. Halimbawa, Spanish teachers work in a democratic management system. They elect their head teachers to lead them, emphasizing collaboration, whereas French teachers naman emphasize on their expertise in the field, while ang mga English teachers naman, they value pastoral care. In the Philippines, meritorious papers, ayun, promotion ang usapan dito. So, even though meron kang head teacher, it doesn't mean na na-elect siya by the masses. The head teacher is an item, so meritorious din yun. Kailangan magpa-promote to get that position. Unlike naman siguro medyo hawig tayo sa French leaders kasi if they are putting emphasis on the expertise in the field, tapos yun ang gagawin nilang head teacher, baka they mean to that dapat may merits siya. So, papers din ang hinahanap siguro dyan. Ayan, pero siguro more on it is when we say it's culturally and socially embedded, the ways of education is bound to the culture where it comes from. Okay, kung importante yung pastoral care sa isang educational system, ganun din ang magiging line ng professional development for teachers. The next one is teachers are artists. It may be actually unpopular, pero it's founded on the following points. The first one, teaching is usually tackled by writers, hindi naman usually tackled by educational researchers. Writing is much like an art, actually, whereas educational research is much like a science. Yung mga methods na in-employ ng teachers, it makes it hard to discern kung ini-execute ba nila yon out of their own production or are they trying to interpret someone else's. Well, if you're gonna ask me, I'm actually I really agree sa isang to. Okay, so being an artist and also being an artist, I guess my major output is teaching. It's the art of teaching kasi I create my own ways of teaching. I also get something good from other teachers na nakasalamuha ko na, and yung mga tips nila syempre also inject them into my own processes. So it's much like sometimes I see myself doing my own stuff, interpreting their own stuff, their stuff, and then I'm also finding myself combining our work for me to be able to come up with the best teaching method or approach. He or she is seen to be born as a teacher and not trained, that his or her development is natural, no planning and no system. Perhaps that is what I am going to disagree with. Although may mga teachers talaga na parang they are born for this, may mga teachers din naman na nakuha talaga nila through training. And let us not generalize that. And then teaching as an occupation or profession. This view of teaching is quite controversial. In the 1960s and 70s, there were debates about the identity of teaching. Halimbawa, in Latin America, it became teaching workers. Teachers became teaching workers from teaching professionals. So, parang demoted, no? Parang ayoko naman yata matawag na teaching worker. Likewise, the Japanese Teaching Union defines teachers as workers and proletariats or proletarians. So, mga working class. As the union's main concern, it's not actually the professionalization of teaching, but the increasing of their salaries. Though magandang bagay yung nag-i-increase ang salary nila, pero parang labeling them as workers is still not something that I would agree on. Since siguro dahil din I came from the Philippines. In the Philippines, if you are a lawyer, a professional one, and then if you are say for instance a nurse or a doctor, which are also professional jobs, mataas din naman ang salary mo. Okay, so ganon. Just because you have a high salary doesn't mean you shouldn't be called a professional. That's what my point. Especially if we're talking about the culture here in the Philippines. The Japanese government regards teachers as servants of the state and not as professionals. While that is true, in the Philippines, meron din namang mga doctors na public servants kasi they work for the public, for the government. Siguro, mas maganda, mas ako, personally, nagugustuhan ko lang yung system natin ng dito sa Pilipinas when it comes to this kind of talk. And according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, the following are factors considered in categorizing teaching as an occupation. The first one, size. Dapat, since malaki ang size ng population ng teachers, kailangan gawin daw sila, i-term daw sila as workers. Next one, educational qualification levels. Kahit na comparatively high as other professions, hindi pa rin naman siya nabibigyan ng much na value. Actually, ako feeling ko, this is something that teacher education institutions must address. Giving prestige to this entire profession perhaps must be one of the key visions of all teacher education institutions, perhaps even their missions and objectives. Kailangan kasama to. Bigyan ng prestige yung pre-service training for teachers. And tingnan lang natin, di ba, kung hindi tataas ang tingin natin sa teaching. Feminization, although, we are all no for this. As for me, I am a no for this. Like, just because a profession is dominated by females doesn't mean it has to be inferior or it has to be labeled inferior, because teaching is not an easy job. Pero, some cultures or most cultures in the past have labeled being female as being inferior, and for some it became part of their history, part of their past. For some naman, they still can't move on. And for any field to be a profession, the following are what Hoyle found out. Kailangan may social function siya, which is true, because teaching is an important process for the well-being of an individual and for the society as a whole. Kailangan there's also knowledge that is involved in it. So may mga debates on content and pedagogy na napaka-prevalent. Teaching must be separated from other craft-oriented practices where skill can be acquired through practice, because teaching is not just something you can do. It also has something that you must know. Okay? Kailangan alam mo rin, may mga alam ka rin regarding pedagogies, kailangan meron ka rin rich bank of knowledge about approaches and strategies para an understanding, of course, of the student para talagang magawa mo to effectively. Yun nga lang, in the Philippines, we don't have this big or this huge autonomy. The actions of teachers, like mostly in public schools, they are mostly dictated by the state, the principal, or supervisors. So meron tayong parang mga suggested, hindi, parang minsan nagiging mandatory na rin sila kasi, may mga memoranda. Ayun. Pero meron tayong certain degree of academic freedom naman. So I guess that counts. And then collective autonomy. Teachers are only government employees. That may actually be partly true. We may be government employees, pero some teachers are not working for the government. So does that mean they're autonomous? Also not. Kasi yung mga private enterprise, yung mga private companies din naman na yun, they also have control over the teachers. And so the teaching profession is fully dependent, or if not partially dependent, on what the company wants. However, meron naman tayong, again, certain degree of academic freedom. Also, professional values. Meron tayong code of ethics. Teachers are made accountable for their actions, and then for dealing with the clients. Just like actually some other professions. Okay, pero there are some professions kasi na ang liability nila sometimes is waived. So, unlike teaching, kapag bumagsak yung bata, lalo in the Philippines, kasalanan lagi ni teacher. Some countries haven't even developed a code of ethics, pero at least in the Philippines, meron na tayo. Now, professional teachers are also seen as clinicians, or people who provide health service, healthcare. Similar to physicians, teachers are always involved in the process of problem solving and even decision making. Dapat meron tayong knowledge of students' curriculum, and then knowledge of teaching strategies, school facilities, and educational objectives. Dapat they all enable us, or to practice the profession and make value judgments. We use our knowledge, we use what we know, our knowledge, and also our skills knowledge, our experiential knowledge, we put them together for us to be able to come up with value-laden decisions as to how to proceed with teaching our students and actually teaching a particular student. So we have all of that kind of training, we have all of those background knowledge that guide us, okay, in coming up with the best decision kung ipopromote ba ang batang to, kung kailangan pa ba niya ng remediation and whatsoever. Okay. Also, teachers are, even though we are artists as well, we're seen as artists, we're also seen as researchers. We are concerned kasi rin with the ways to improve our teaching, changing the situation in with which they work, especially kung ngayon, currently it's October 2, we are having in the Philippines a very big problem. It's the pandemic. And so, ginawa natin dito mga iba-ibang learning delivery modalities. Now, because of research, teachers can amount to the knowledge being contributed by other professionals. Now, let's talk about the international legal framework on the right to education and the teaching profession. Let's start with the 1960 UNESCO Convention Against Discrimination in Education. Its major content are the following. So, ayan, medyo mahaba siya. Okay, so what it says, it engages, Article 4, engages all state parties to provide training to the teaching profession without any form of discrimination. By gender man yan, by abilities man yan, by local man yan. Okay, kailangan everyone must be provided with professional education, professional development opportunities without any discrimination. The next one is the ILO-UNESCO recommendation concerning the status of teachers. So its main is that it sets forth the rights and responsibilities of teachers and international standards para sa kanilang initial preparation and further education, recruitment, employment, and teaching and learning conditions. So it basically gives us the from removing discrimination, now it also gives us a good working condition. And also the last one is the recommendation concerning the status of higher education teaching personnel or the professors, instructors known as higher education institutions. This recommendation contains provisions relating to the duties and responsibilities of institutions in terms of institutional autonomy and institutional accountability, and also the rights and freedoms of teaching personnel, including individual rights and freedoms, civil rights, academic freedom, publication rights, and international exchange of information, self-governance, and collegiality. So, maraming maganda na, meron ng structure ang basic education, pero ang higher education parang kailangan pa siyang and ma-improve. So, this recommendation concerning the status of higher education teaching personnel is making sure that professors, instructors are having access to their rights, and also they know what their responsibilities are, along with some professional freedom, forms of professional freedom, conditions for effective teaching and learning. The recommendation also contains special provisions for teachers in rural and remote areas. And, especially during these times, we need to be reminded that the teaching profession, according to the UNESCO, is such an esteemed profession, apart from it being noble. This is the Knowledge Catalog. It is a brand being developed by a teacher creator, that is me, and I am a high school teacher in the Philippines. I love creating content that I find useful and needed to better my instruction. If you want to support me, you may subscribe to this channel and leave a like to this video, or leave a positive comment sa comment section. I'll see you in the next video.